Welcome to Sentimental Simmer, a podcast made for emotionally attached simmers and storytellers with wild imaginations. I'm your host, Gloria, and I run Yellow Llama Co., a planner shop made to help simmers play with purpose. Every week, I talk all about things sim life planning, storytelling, and memory keeping. I'll also brainstorm new ways to obsess over our pixel people, whether they be in The Sims or another life sim game. And now let's get into it. Today, we're going to talk about the most scary thing that can happen to a simmer. Really, the worst thing. I mean, apart from maybe the game crashing when you haven't clicked on save yet. But it's really up there. Like, it's a strong contender. It's basically the corrupted save file. This is something I don't know if it's happened ever in Sims 1, but since Sims 2 for sure, it's been a big issue. Something us simmers have tried to get ahead of and tried to avoid and keep from happening and to prevent. And that's what this episode is all about, because we aren't talking about any type of save file. We're talking about our Sims Legacy family save files. They are full of history and importance, and we do not want to lose them by any means. We don't want to lose all that history, all that story, all that goodness that we've built and taken so long to create, right? I mean, it could take years. I have this 5-gen legacy in The Sims 3 that I'm holding on to and will never let go. And I'm hoping eventually I'll get to Gen 10. But I worked hard to get there. And I'm actually scared to play that save file because I'm scared that, Sims 3 will get buggy on me, as it, usually does eventually. And yeah, so let's take a breather. Let's center ourselves. I know it's hard. It's not an easy topic, but we have to confront it head first. It's super important. It's worse if we confront this when it happens and we don't know what to do, which I actually have a solution for as well. At the end of the episode, I will be getting into what to do if all has failed and you just need a solution. So first and foremost, save file hygiene. Super important. I'm going to talk about the general rule of thumbs that are relevant for any game, whether you're playing Sims 2, 3, 4, or even, Life by You maybe in the future. I think so. I'm recording this right now. It hasn't been released yet, and I can't wait till it is. But this is valid probably just as much for that game, or for Pair Lives, or any game you're playing that is full of history and content you don't want to lose. So first and foremost, this is really a rule of life. Always make backups. Back up your save files and your game files. I recommend using a dedicated software to do this so that, you can just set it and forget it and really make sure that you have those regular saves and you don't lose them. Also, back up your Sims, the families, and their homes as well. So depending on the game you're playing, you can save these to the gallery or to the game library bin. You could also export tray files as well that you can save to another hard drive so that you're not just backing up the Sims and the families generally in your game, but also physically, kind of digitally, however you want to call it, so that you can have them safe somewhere where the game can't mess with them, can't corrupt them. So you have those backups. And they're going to be important later on in the episode when I touch on solutions for Armageddon. And one thing you might also want to save are mementos of your Sim Legacy families, such as paintings or any handmade items or photos of Sims. In The Sims 3, I love that you could create statues of your Sims. That was brilliant. And you don't want to lose these things. So at least in The Sims 4, I think you can just simply upload these items to the gallery within a room. And that way you can keep them together. And if anything ever happened, you won't lose those items. So, for example, if a lot gets corrupted, which can happen, right? In these games, it's not as simple as a corrupted save file. It can be a corrupted lot. With this For Rent pack, which at the time of this recording was released, I think about 2 months ago, and I haven't really been able to play with a good conscience. I mean, I still am, because I just can't let go of this family that I'm playing. Also, Potential Legacy, we're only at Generation 2, but I have high hopes for them. But you're going to want to safe keep items as well, and rooms, and or even family homes, because the for rent pack, just to take that as an example, has been messing up lots and, well, save files in general. But if it's maybe just a lot, that could have been a really important lot that you just now lost because of a patch update or whatever. And so you might want to have a backup of that explicit thing. So not just save files or Sims, but, items, lots, and whatnot as well. Anything that you were attached to, make a backup. Also, as a good, save file hygiene is to actually save the game under the option save as instead of overwriting your current save file. So, of course, you're going to overwrite it maybe 4 times, or I don't know. But then, like, let's say the 5th time, you save as. I actually just always save as, and I have like this one save file. It's called save file C because I'm creative. Not C for creative, but because it's sarcasm, okay? And I always just call it save file C1, save file C2, and then when it's like 10 or whatever, I just start all over again and I delete the old ones. And that way you have a fresh save in increments. If you save, like I say, every like maybe 30 minutes, and you can get a mod that reminds you to do this as well, then you know for sure, like maybe if the issue happened 2 hours into playing, then save file, I don't know, C3 is probably still going to be good because you see the date when it was saved and all that. So that's a tip as well. And of course, nothing's stopping you from documenting all that history you've created, all those stories outside of the game. So you can do this in a journal and a family tree app. That's what I recommend. And while, of course, I love my templates that I've created and the Sim Planner, I recommend those, of course, if you want to, jazz things up. You can also just use a plain notebook or a Google Doc or OneNote for free. You don't need my templates to use that, to save all that history and to organize screenshots and give them a place, a home, basically. Together with a family tree app, which there are also many options. I recommend the My Family Tree app by Chronoplex. Together, these are strong options to really save what you've done in the game, what your families have experienced, all that rich history, all that lore that you've created. It survives even the worst corrupted file. That way, if you ever do have to start over, let's hope not, you at least know what happened and you have screenshots and there's proof that those lives were lived, that history was made, even if the save file and the actual family home doesn't exist anymore, or that family tree that, is lost also with the save file. If it's corrupted, you can't access the in-game family tree anymore. But if you have kept a log of that family tree externally with an app, for example, then it's only half as bad, right? We're trying to minimize the trauma here. And another big important point about save file hygiene, I know it's not easy and we can get a bit lax on this, but it is keeping mods in CC to a minimum and most importantly, keeping them up to date. Now, just as much as we love to go on a shopping spree and downloading a crap ton of CC, it's equally important to invest time in organizing that CC and, having good habits. For example, if you I download CC in bulk, for example, and then I make sure to organize it in my folders, how I personally categorize them. So I categorize them by type. So if it's just normal CC, then it's, built by or clothing, accessories, whatnot. And I do this in bulk right after I went on my 2-hour shopping spree. And so I just get it done before I even open the game and use anything. And it's annoying. It takes like a good, depending on how much I downloaded, a good 20 minutes to do. But yeah, it's just important. It's good for peace of mind and it keeps you organized because, a corrupt file might be based off of bad CC. You might be noticing things are wonky. For example, I don't know why, but a lot of my Sims are like walking around without tops and bottoms. And I don't know what's going on there. I have to figure that out. But there's some mod I have to update somewhere that's, wreaking havoc. Always keep them up to date and keep them organized. And so in regards to organization, I wrote a blog post about this, how I organize my mods. I can recommend looking into that. I'll leave a link in the show notes. And also the Sims 4 mod manager is great for the Sims 4. And CC Magic is a great app if you're working with the Sims 3. CC Magic even improves the performance and loading time of your game by consolidating the CC into one package file before the game loads. So I really recommend that. It also organizes the CC. It's brilliant. So those are my tips on keeping organized. To keep up to date, for The Sims 4, I recommend the mod list by Scarlett to really quickly reference your mods and update them and see the compatibility status, because it can be a lot. Maybe if you have, like me, 100 plus mods actively in your game and you don't want to click on every creator's individual link, her list is great just to have a general overview of what actually has been updated, what do I actually need to change, and then I move forward with going to the creator's website. I also recommend using Airtable to organize and keep track of your mods. I also mentioned in my blog post how I use Airtable together with my folder organization system to stay on top of things and stay on top of the update status on my end. So you have the creator update status, of course, when they last updated the mod, if it's up to date and compatible with the patch. But then there's my update status, like when did I actually install that into my game. So they updated on, let's say, the 2nd of February, and I last updated mine in my Airtable IC on the 22nd of January. Well, that means I don't have the most up-to-date version anymore, because I can see based off of my Airtable when I last installed it. And then I know, okay, I have to, check this out and install it. Also, sometimes patch updates break any like in-game CC you can have. Like, I remember there was a bug in The Sims 4 where it broke beds when a patch update kind of messed them up. The Sims 4 Studio app is actually great to use to fix everything in bulk. It has batch fixes that you can use to repair those items. Next, for save file hygiene, population control. So this is especially true, I think, in The Sims 3 got real heavy, and in The Sims 4 now as well. The longer you play, you can tend to overpopulate a world quickly. If you have story progression on, then the files can bloat quite quickly. If you have more and more Sims joining the world, more and more history that is being made, more metadata that's being saved about these Sims, more inventories that are filling up with objects, it really tanks the performance of your game and ultimately can lead to errors later down the line and a corrupted save file. So I think one point here to make is to try to keep the population to a minimum in your save files. Like, this is easier, I think, in Sims 4 than Sims 3, because in Sims 4, you can actually regulate this in the Manage Households window, where you can limit the maximum Sim count and all that good stuff. I'll actually go into detail about how to manage these things for each game in specific, so the best practices for each specific game in more detail in my blog post, so definitely check that out in the show notes about how, for example, culling works and how to minimize all that bloat in regards to population, because it's also different whether you're playing Sims 3 or the Sims 4. In general, whether it's going to probably be relevant for Life by You as well, keeping the population down, or let's say just to a reasonable amount, will definitely be nicer for your PC, but also probably keep the save file from becoming corrupted. Also, use tools where possible. Like I said in the blog post, I'll go into detail which ones for which Sims game. Core maintenance mods are great that, from the get-go, clean your file regularly, or mods that analyze your game and report when you have errors so that you know, oh, I have duplicate CC, or I have some mods that aren't compatible with the latest patch. Let me go look into that. Or mods that give you more control over your worlds, for example, population, that help you then ultimately prevent them from bloating. To summarize, for save file hygiene, just general rule of thumbs, always make backups, keep your mods and CC to a minimum and always up to date, control your population, make sure those Sims don't, grow exponentially so that you have a world that's just bursting from the scenes, and use tools where possible. So I'll go into detail in the blog post about, exactly which mods for which game, which, more maybe tips and links and stuff like that for these areas that you can reference. So those are the game-specific best practices. I'll list these as well as, helpful tips for population control, core maintenance mods, and whatnot on my blog. But even with the best intentions, worlds can still get big and laggy. You have an old save, inventory accumulates, there's lots of sim data. What can you do? Start fresh wherever you can. So, for example, as I mentioned before, when saving your progress, use the save as to create a fresh file instead of overwriting the current save file. So that is not only good in terms of making a backup, but it also creates an entirely new file. So if the file beforehand was buggy for some reason, then that might help. Also, for The Sims 3, you can use the regular save cleaner by OneBuild. I think it cleans out metadata of some sort. I don't really understand how it works in detail, but it's great. It really it feels like it freshens up your save file. I've done it a couple of times, and I do feel as if my save files were quicker and like speedier after doing that. And so it's doing some sort of magic. And so I can definitely recommend. And what can also help is starting in a new world. So starting fresh could mean, a quick clean with that cleaner app, or moving your Sims to an entirely new world. So in The Sims 3, you can do this quite easily with the NROS Porter mod. It is a mod that you can use to package entire legacy families and move them to a new world. Of course, in The Sims 3, new world is actually a new save file, whereas, in The Sims 4, it's literally a new world within the same save file. But in this case, in The Sims 3, you're moving your Sims to a new world, or even it could be the same world, but just a fresh version of it, right? And the beauty of the NROS Porter is that even if you port multiple households, because you want to keep the entire family and all family members together, the relationship ties remain. And that's really the best part about it. I had this old save file with in the Island Paradiso world, which we all know is the most buggy thing I think that The Sims has ever come and ever built, at least in terms of worlds. So, of course, after playing hours and hours on end in that world, I had to get my family out of there, stat. So I moved Palmyra, I moved her daughter. Oh, no. Yeah, Palmyra was the daughter, and I moved Florida, which was the mom. I moved them all, Kate and Capoodle, into a new world, and there they can be safe and continue to live on without the, burden of that was Isla Paradiso. I love that mod, and it's great if you want a new start, but you want to keep your Sims. But last but not least, sometimes we have to face the truth. What if your save file is corrupted beyond rescue? You've done everything you could. Save file hygiene was on point. You started fresh a couple times, but for some reason, your save isn't opening anymore. Or your Sims are being weird and aren't stopping being weird after you update all your mods. Things are just not working. Game is crashing. And so what can you do if your save file is corrupted, but you don't have backup? Oh my God. So save file hygiene was on point, but maybe some backups are lost, or maybe you weren't so good with backups. Maybe, you missed a couple and you can't rely on a backup. Well, let's make lemonade out of lemons. There are creative ways to work with what you got, even if what you got is zilch, is just like your heart. You have the memory of your Sims. They're in your heart. You've got love for them. That's all that's left, and everything else is gone. And you got a record of them in your OneNote, and so you know who they are. You know who's missing, but you don't actually have the Sims anymore. You don't have the save file. What do? If all else fails and you're forced to abort your current save file, pretend it was fate. Make something up. Take this as an opportunity to turn tragedy into a storyline. So there's this Simmer I like to follow on Twitter. Her name's Anisha. And she had a legacy family home. And I swear she has such a huge generation. A legacy family is like so many generations. It's really goals. And unfortunately, their family home became corrupt in some way or form. I don't remember the details, but I know, she had an issue there. She had to figure things out. And so she ended up just rolling with the punches and created a story about a storm that destroyed everything and weaved that basically into the family's new reality, into her gameplay. And so she just rebuilt basically the lot, I think, to what she could remember. And, of course, things weren't exactly as it was before. And she explained it away, saying that a storm had come. So I think that is fun. Like, you could turn something that is initially like, oh my God, devastating, right, into something that actually can further enrich your story, right? So that's super fun and super cool and can turn trauma into something good, I guess, right? So here are some storyline ideas or scenarios you could use to continue your legacy despite having a corrupted file. So we have the time warp. Here, the story is that the corruption caused a time warp, sending your legacy family back several generations. They must now navigate life in a different era while trying to find a way back to their own time. And so here, great opportunities to start some historical gameplay, right? And download some cool worlds to fit the bill. And so I found already some worlds for The Sims 3. For the blog, I'll see if I can find some for Sims 2 and Sims 4. But for The Sims 3, there's such beautiful worlds out there that you can use. Northerny by Norn, for example. It's so nice. It doesn't even have any roads, so it's so true to the time. Praven, we reworked by Potato Ballad Sims and edited by Sims Midget and Norn are also beautiful. Is also a beautiful world, and there are many more. And so I'll leave that in the blog so you can check that out. Another storyline you could roll with is Rebuilding from Ashes. The family discovers they are the last survivors of a mysterious event that wiped out their neighborhood. They must rebuild their lives from scratch, facing challenges and uncovering the truth behind the catastrophe. So, apocalypse world, right? Some like survival, maybe some zombie stuff you can work with here. And so I already found a ton of worlds for The Sims 3 and 2 that would work well here. Beautiful worlds. Please check them all out. Just some, I can throw a few names here. We have Rose Ward by Nigalkins. We have Miner's Cove by Lily Josephine. So those Sims 3 worlds. And then The Sims 4, we have Dead End 1.0 by Floral Sims. Brilliant world maker for The Sims 4. Always very realistic, very gritty and real. And so who best to make an apocalypse world than Floral Sims? So definitely check that out. The next scenario, Parallel Universe. The family finds themselves in a parallel universe where everything is slightly off. They must adapt to the new world's quirks and find a way back to their original universe. So here, for example, basically one or more of your Sims family members, depending on if you had backup trade files or not, they find themselves in a brand new save file, but it's the same world where they were before. So this, for example, it would work super well in the Sims 3 and the Sims 4. I mean, any one in the Sims 2 as well. But basically, we have in the Sims 3, your classic worlds we played in was Sunset Valley or Appaloosa Plains was my personal favorite. Well, these have been reimagined by Simmers. So we have, for example, Riverview reimagined by Vic Sims 3. We have Sunset Valley renovated, as well as Appaloosa Plains renovated by Plumbob95. So you can actually legit not only use the same world, but you can use a world that is truly parallel universe because there are like different builds, different Sims maybe exist in that world. Maybe time has moved on in that world. And so everything's the same, but kind of not. And so you can have fun with that parallel universe kind of storyline. In The Sims 4, it's pretty natural as well. I know there are plenty of, save file versions that either play on, oh yes, there's this one save file by Charlie Pancakes 10 years later. And it's basically all the worlds we know, the base game ones. So we have Willow Creek, Oasis Springs, and Newcrest, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's base game, no CC, and by Charlie Pancakes, and it's basically everything 10 years later. So the families have progressed, new, backstories and relationships, super fun, and perfect for this storyline. And last but not least, another scenario, and probably the most true to the game, Alien Encounter. The family, or maybe just one, family member, has been abducted by aliens. They wake up and find themselves in a new world, on a new planet where nothing will ever be the same. And so I already found some Sims 3 worlds that could work great with this. Kronar by Kronor, Saturnorn by Saturaja 13, Simblue, and Norn. So these are two sci-fi-esque worlds. I think one's a bit dark. The other one's very sparkly, purpley, but definitely both are very alien. So perfect for this type of legacy family, new destiny alien encounter. Obviously, these scenarios work best if you also have your Sims to fall back on. So if you play in The Sims 4, for example, you have your legacy family members maybe saved, uploaded to the gallery, for each life stage, or maybe just generally, and then you can change the life stage when you re-import them into your game. In The Sims 3, you can, I think, export tray files of your Sims, so that's a way to keep them safe if ever anything were to happen, that you have that particular Sim that you can start fresh with in a completely new scenario. So I hope these tips help you, for one, uphold and maintain good save file hygiene and how important it is, because we do not want the trauma of a corrupted save file. Unfortunately, I think no matter how much you do, there will always be that chance of a corrupted save file. But hopefully you can refer back to a backup, or perhaps just overwriting the file helps, or some sort of, let's say, stay fresh option that I listed, whether it's cleaning the save file or just with the maybe barely still working world, import your family real quick to a new one, and then all is good because you can still save the actual legacy. But if all else fails, I hope those scenario ideas give you something to play with so that it's maybe not even a big, thing, so bad if you do lose a save file, because it gives you a fun opportunity to really switch things up literally in a new world, in a totally new atmosphere and storyline. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about how we can share our stories with each other. And I think this is a great way to just also stick with a save file, because it's kind of like holding each other accountable, but in a fun way. Until then, happy simming!